No one could believe that just one law passed by the Algerian parliament this week could be a spark. A political earthquake threatens France, and it reopens the colonial file in 23 African countries and secretly serves 4 major powers all at once. What happened in Algeria is not just a historical law, nor is it just a symbolic step. In fact, we can say it is a declaration of war. And the real question here is not what does Algeria want from France. Everyone knows what Algeria wants from France. But the real question is, who is behind Algeria? Who is behind this move? Why did it come now? Why exactly this timing? Who is the real beneficiary? Will Algeria really turn into an open battleground between the major powers in the coming days? Today's topic, stay tuned. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings, and welcome to today's renewed meeting, God willing, from the series of opinion episodes. As I always tell you, dear viewers, the world is changing remarkably and very quickly. There have been various transformations that have begun today, are still ongoing, and in the coming days there will be even bigger and greater transformations than these. So today, dear viewers, I am dedicating this episode to a new and exciting transformation that happened just this week. This time it wasn't in Latin America, it wasn't in Europe, it wasn't in the Middle East, China, or anywhere else. I mean, not from conflict zones, but rather in the Maghreb region, and specifically in this brotherly Arab country, Algeria. So during this week, the Algerian parliament unanimously approved a new law that criminalizes the French colonialism that was in Algeria for more than 132 years. A new law that officially describes this colonialism as a state crime. The law demands an official apology from France and requires France to pay compensation to the Algerian state for this colonial period and for the crimes committed by France. From carrying out executions outside the law, to torture, to economic exploitation, the looting of resources that took place during that period, and also the nuclear tests that France conducted at that time. I mean, on Algerian soil without any concern for the environmental danger that affected millions of Algerians for many years. So, Algeria, after 23 years since the end of this French colonization, finally woke up. And it took the first escalatory step, demanding the restoration of dignity for the Algerian people as a strong signal that this issue does not end with the passage of time. Here, we can describe the situation as a couple who lived together for maybe 32 years, even though the husband was harsh and committed crimes against his wife. And even though there was a divorce or separation in 1962, Algeria did not demand any compensation or alimony. That is, this wife did not ask for compensation or alimony. Why? Because during this whole period, she remained France's secret mistress, and this relationship resulted in the birth of a new illegitimate child called Polisario. This relationship continued until the husband, meaning France, decided to abandon this daughter. We're talking about Polisario, until France decided to recognize the Moroccan Sahara, and that's when the biggest new change in North Africa took place. That's when Algeria woke up and decided to take revenge on France, through a series of steps over the past months, which there's no need to mention today. But no one thought that the revenge or awakening could reach this level. That it would go as far as issuing a new law criminalizing French colonialism, demanding an apology from France, and perhaps even demanding compensation. Because we're talking about many long years that have passed. We're not talking about 5 or 10 years, we're talking about 63 years. It's really strange, but as we always say, it's better for good things to come late than never at all. So everyone needs to pay attention here, because these changes we're experiencing today are truly leading us toward great things to come. These steps might be paving the way for these great things. Everything happening in the world today is paving the way for great things to come. If we look closely at these events today, we'll find that none of these events had any impact 5 years ago. The world has changed in the last 5 years. Just 5 years ago, Algeria couldn't even imagine that it could enter into a confrontation with France. So what do you think about passing a law that officially and publicly describes France as a colonial state that committed crimes, looted and stole resources and so on? This wasn't even imaginable before. Now we're living through a radical change that no one expected, and this change has reached the Maghreb region. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that this new law is an explicit hostile initiative, and they said that passing this law breaks the French-Algerian dialogue, meaning it ends this French-Algerian dialogue. So, pay close attention here, dear viewers. This law consists of 5 chapters and 27 articles, all of which talk about France's crimes, such as executions, rape, torture, theft, and so on. But the most important thing of all is what? It's that there was a separate article that talks about the most dangerous thing that happened during the colonial era. French collaborators, traitors. It talks about what is called the Harkis, or Harki, the French army, which was made up of Algerians themselves whom France used against the resistance. For the first time after 63 years, Algeria officially comes out to describe these people as traitors. For the first time, Algeria admits that their actions were a great betrayal against the Algerian people. Moreover, a law was issued that punishes anyone who praises these people with imprisonment for up to 10 years. So today, why do I say that this is considered a new shift in the region? Because even if it's just an internal law specific to Algeria, it doesn't obligate France to recognize these crimes, pay compensation, or anything like that. However, this law clearly and openly opens the door to other steps that will have very serious consequences for France. The first step is that today Algeria is opening the door for all other African countries to take the same steps. It opens the door for all countries that were under French occupation. 22 African countries, including those in the Sahel, West Africa, Gabon, and Madagascar, were under French occupation. Moreover, most of them today will consider taking the same step, which means maybe tomorrow we will see. At least we will see. The Sahel countries of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are coming out with the same laws, demanding that France recognize, apologize, and pay compensation, and so on. And here everyone should pay attention to a very important point. This step taken by Algeria comes with the blessing of all the new major powers, with the blessing of the upcoming world government, America, Russia, China, and India. This is so that everyone knows that today's international circumstances have become favorable for Algeria and favorable for all these countries to rise up and demand their rights regarding that colonial period. We see Russia blessing this step. Why? Because it serves Russia's interests. Russia, as everyone knows. In Europe's ongoing conflict, Macron is currently Russia's main adversary and a leading member of the so-called war party. The countries that want this war in Ukraine to continue, the countries that are planning a major war against Russia. So when Algeria issues this law against France today, of course, this comes in line with Russian interests. And this is without forgetting another important point that everyone should pay attention to. Today, the country of Poland has recently started demanding the seizure of Russian assets in Europe as compensation for the period of Soviet occupation of Poland. Poland was under occupation. It was under German occupation during World War I. So when the Soviet Union entered this war, it began advancing toward Germany, taking all the Eastern European countries and reaching Poland. It was the Soviet Union that liberated Poland, and after that, Poland came under Soviet dominance, or became part of the Soviet Union. So today, Poland is demanding compensation for this period. They say that Russia committed crimes against the Polish people, so Russian assets in Europe should be seized as compensation for that. So today, Russia, in an indirect way, is responding to Europe by opening the same file through Algeria, and maybe tomorrow other countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, or Niger will open it too. This is Russia's way of responding to the Europeans. You are opening this file and saying that there is no statute of limitations for such crimes. We will also open this file and say the same thing, that there is no statute of limitations either. We also see these steps regarding what you did in Africa. India blesses it. Why India? Because this opens the door to an issue that India strongly wants today, the issue of British colonialism in India. India has a very heavy file regarding the colonial era against Britain. If we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps France looted them from Africa. International studies estimate that what Britain looted from India during the colonial period exceeds $45 trillion. That is $45,000 billion. It's a huge number. That's on one hand. On the other hand, if Algeria says it has 1 million martyrs and France only acknowledges 400,000 martyrs in general, Britain killed more than 3 million Indians in India, either directly or because of colonial policies, the most significant of which was the Bengal famine in 1943. Add to that the destruction caused to the local Indian industry, such as textiles and cutting Indian fabrics. Also, the exploitation of infrastructure to loot resources and so on. All of these are considered crimes, and they are historically documented. It's not just emotional, it's documented by India. So opening the case in Algeria against France opens the door and whets India's appetite to demand reparations as well. Remember, we're discussing a major power, the world's 5th largest economy, not just any country. It has also gained significant influence in Africa. This means that it could also play other roles to encourage some African countries to make the same demands of France as Algeria has. We find almost the same thing with China. China welcomes this move. Why? It was also harmed by colonialism's crimes. The only difference here is that China will not demand financial compensation, but it will use this issue as a point of strength in negotiations to impose new trade conditions on Europe or to gain European support. In the Taiwan issue, in such matters as well, we see that this Algerian move is also welcomed by America, welcomed by Trump. Why? Because now, if you ask me, of course, who are America's new rivals? Who are Trump's rivals? I would tell you they are the liberal leaders in Europe from France, Britain, and Germany. So Trump supports Algeria's move because it undermines French influence in Africa, threatens British influence, and therefore it's a step that weakens European influence. And now, the most important thing America is doing today in the world, and especially in Africa, is what? Is it attaching the term Western countries to Europe? That's all. Detaching from the term the West might mean disowning France's crimes in Africa. America wants to assure the world and Africa that their historical enemy is not the West, which includes America, not America itself, but France alone. That's why France and Germany were expelled from the Sahel countries, but America stayed since it distances itself from them. It says it's different, not like them, and a different policy has started with these countries. That's why it really wants this issue that Algeria has opened to be addressed. It wants to exhaust France, to drain France, and to drain Europe more and more. Trump knows Europe's era is over. Therefore, Algeria is now taking advantage of the current international situation, making use of this international consensus with this move, and in the future it will work to escalate even more against France. So here exactly, I will go back to what I said recently. Algeria will be an open conflict zone between Russia and the Europeans. If the major war starts, rest assured that it will, one way or another, move on to Algerian territory. There is a conflict with France, there is a long border with the Sahel countries, there is a strategic maritime area, and there is gas that Europe cannot do without during the war period. If this war starts, I honestly don't know if Algeria is militarily prepared for what's coming, and I also don't know how it could avoid getting involved in this war. Comment below. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.